Welcome to the Digital Gathering 2020, sponsored by Clan MacFarlane Worldwide. I'm Lori MacFarlane Jackson, President of CMW, your host for this event. Like so many of you, we've been unable to attend our regular Highland Games events this year, and so instead we find ourselves relying on our ingenuity, perhaps born of our Scottish heritage, to bring to you this digital gathering event, along with our special guests, the Lord Lyon, Dr. Bruce Durie, Elliot MacFarlane of the St. Andrew's Society of Detroit, Janet Robertson of Thistle Dubh Enterprises, athletics guest Gretchen Sell-Finlay, and featuring musical guests Highland Rain. We hope you will be both entertained and educated as you enjoy these presentations with us. We're so very pleased to welcome Dr. Joseph J. Morrow, Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, Right Honorable Lord Lyon, to officially open the gathering. Among his many accomplishments, Lyon Morrow is a canon of the Episcopal Church, a Grand Master Mason for the Grand Lodge of Scotland, an attorney, an officer of the Queen's Household for Scotland, and as the Lord Lyon, a sitting judge. The Court of Lord Lyon is the official heraldry office for Scotland. It is the heraldic authority for Scotland and deals with all matters related to Scottish heraldry and coats of arms, and maintains the Scottish public registers of arms and genealogies. And now, the Lord Lyon.
I want to welcome you here to my home in Angus, Scotland, the county which is the birthplace of the nation of Scotland, where the Declaration of Arbroath was proclaimed. I'm also delighted to be joined by those of you who love Scotland from all over the world at these games. We live in a world which is dominated by the COVID-19 virus, but we as Scots have our inventiveness, a mark of what it means to be a Scot, and this has led to these digital games. Well done to all concerned who have set this event up. Long live Scotland's traditions throughout the world. It is now my honour and pride, as Lord Lyon, the successor of the High Shinnicky of the King of Scots, to declare this gathering formally opened. Thank you and keep safe.
Many thanks to the Lord Lyon for opening this digital gathering. We move on now to our next segment, featuring a conversation between Lyon Morrow and our guest, Dr. Durie. Bruce Durie is that unusual animal, a scientist with an additional doctorate in history. He's considered one of Scotland's top genealogists with an international reputation. He has the right of audience at the court of the Lord Lyon and may petition on behalf of those wishing to achieve a legal coat of arms in Scotland or elsewhere. The author of over 30 books, he's well known for speaking, lecturing, and presenting workshops on various aspects of Scottish genealogy, heraldry, history, and culture worldwide, but particularly in the USA and Canada, and is the only member from Scotland of the prestigious Italian organization, the International Academy for Genealogy. And now we present to you a conversation between the Lord Lyon and Dr. Bruce Durie.
Well, hello, my name is Bruce Durie. I'm the small floating head you can see, or maybe not, at the top of your screen. More appropriately larger is the Reverend Dr. Joseph John Morrow, CBA QCDL, the Right Honourable the Lord Lyon, King of Arms for Scotland. And the Lord Lyon's an interesting person because he's three people rolled into one. He is a judge in his own court, the Lyon Court. He is a Minister of State in the Scottish Government, and he is the Queen's household member responsible for all matters heraldic, ceremonial, processional, etc. in Scotland. And Lord Lyon, you're appropriately attired today, I can see.
Yes, I'm dressed up in my tweed jacket and my nice Queensland tartan tie. been somewhere that I visited last year and celebrated Scotland with the expatriate Scots out there in Australia.
Fabulous. I mean, I've seen you dressed in various things from full tabard to judicial robes and wigs and so on. I see you have your bicorn hat behind you.
That's right. That's a new innovative step for the Court of the Lord Lyon. We used to wear Tudor hats and I didn't really like them very much. So last year we managed to obtain some funding and we all now have magnificent bicorn hats. Mine's is black with a gold and white ostrich feathers along the ridge.
Oh, how wonderful. And that speaks to the tradition of the Lyon Court. I mean, it is, of course, fully part of the Scottish judicial and court system, and it really operates in its current form from 1672. So you've got the weight of 350 years on your shoulders.
That's correct. 350 traditional years as well, because the Lyon Court has not been known for its innovation in the past, but it is something that actually is rooted very much in the history of Scotland. And it goes back far beyond that into periods of actually Celtic history, as well as into the present modern Court of the Lord Lyon. One of the things for me is to actually build on that tradition, but also to move the court forward. It's very important for me that we keep and stay part of the civil law of Scotland. We are the last standing heraldic court in the world that meets regularly as a court and operates under the civil law of Scotland. And
you must have your own formulation in your head of what the court is for and how it operates.
Yeah, for me, the court is something that's very special indeed, and it gets me excited, believe it or not, to be part of that court and part of that tradition, because it's really a celebration of what it means to be Scottish. But for me too, it's very important that we follow some very principles about moving the court forward. I'm a great reader of John Knox and some of the activities that he got up to, particularly within the history books. And in his second book of discipline, he wrote about the 3 R's in education: reading, writing and arithmetic. And he established parish schools in every parish in Scotland. In the Court of the Lord Lyon, I have my own 3 R's. The first one is respect. We're committed to the past and our traditional practices, high standards of practice, and we need to value those and to see them as the foundation of what we build on. Respect will always be given to traditions that are well established and well trodden. But the second R is relevancy. We need to make the Court of the Lord Lyon relevant in our own time, for that's where the future will be built on. This is done through developing good relationships and taking actions that will encourage others to be engaged in something that might come very natural to us in terms of our Scottish traditions of heraldry and ceremonial and values. But these relationships make it relevant, and it's important for me that we engage with this generation about what we are in terms of the Lyon Court. And the third one, and this is the one that often gets me into trouble, because if there is a rule and the rule has always been what it is, then in fact the third R of renewal is very difficult. Trying to move things forward and to bring them into a relevancy for our own age, but with a respect for our tradition. I've been very keen, albeit to take it slowly, to renew the Court of the Lord Lyon and to make it more accessible to us as individuals in Scotland, but also in terms of those who are part of the Scottish tradition overseas.
And that speaks very much to what it means to be a Scot in today's world, either in Scotland or as part of the dispersed Scots worldwide.
Well, I would say this, but I don't believe there is a better nation to belong to than be a Scot. And many people reflect that worldwide. It's not because we're grand people or we think we're better than someone else, but it's actually because we try to kind of engage with true values of what it means to be a good person. The test basically for the grant of arms in Scotland is to be a good and virtuous person. But it's important for me, very important indeed, that to be a Scot today is about valuing our traditions and our history, but also practicing them in a way that makes them common sense approaches for our days. I'm amazed wherever I go, whether it be Australia, North America, or to the games here in Scotland, how much people value our traditional arts, for example, Highland dancing, the singing of Celtic music, the Gaelic songs, our games with the tossing of the caber, etc., etc., are all greatly valued. And these are part and parcel of what makes a Scot today, the catching of those traditional values. I'm also equally amazed at some of the bizarre things that people think that Scotland is about. And that's been partly influenced by the fantasy movement on movies and on television. But above all, for me, the great values of the Scots are those values which are practiced in everyday life. The value of equality, the value of honesty, the value of commitment to your community, and that community being wider than simply yourself and your family, but actually the worldwide network of Scots.
Yes, I mean, Scotland's not frozen in amber in some kind of imagined past reality. I've heard you speak of the Living Scotland movement or precept.
Yeah, it's something that for me gets me excited because it's about people today. It's not about, as you say, being set in amber or set in stone of where we were. And even if we were there in the past, that doesn't mean that we need to be stuck there. That's the foundation of how we move forward. And the Living Scotland movement is about those who think and want to belong to Scotland one way or another, whether it be here at home or whether it be overseas, in a living way within their own generations. So it's about you and me. It's about those who attend games. It's about those who belong to Scottish societies and St Andrews societies, about those who attend Burns suppers, about those who value the educational system and the legal system of Scotland. All of these things are part and parcel of the Living Scotland. It's only if we can remain a growing community that we have any relevancy in the world in which we live. And it's the only way in which we can respect our past traditions and renew ourselves as if we belong to a living Scotland in our own day. And we make a difference in our own day.
And you and I have been to quite a few games and gatherings around the world in our time. So what's your view of the role of Scottish games and gatherings in maintaining our traditions, culture, values, and so on?
Well, I have to say, first of all, that I've never had anything but the most wonderful hospitality as I've attended games. From Ferguson, Ontario to North Carolina, with a great welcome and really a great joy about actually what it means to be in Scotland as part of that Living Scotland. But for me, the key to the games are two words: the gathering. We can never be truly part of that Living Scotland if we're sitting our own and we don't actually engage with the wider community, because it's through those relationships with other Scots that we learn what it means to be part of the Living Scotland. And the gathering's important. But the second thing about the event of the games is a celebration. If you've ever attended Highland Games, in any part of the world, everything's out, everybody's dressed up, more kilts than you could ever see in one place at any one time. Tartan everywhere, music playing, food and celebration, and of course drink and celebration that goes on. But above all, there is the colours that are represented in the flags and the pageantry of the games. And for me, the real relevance of Highland Games today is not only the gathering and the celebrating of our traditions, but it's the celebrating of those traditions today. And so the second word for games for me is the word of celebration, where everyone enjoys it. One of the things I love, particularly about North American Highland Games, is the emphasis they place on the family nature of the games. It's for everyone, from the toddler in the pushchair to the older person who may find it difficult getting around. There is all sorts of activities, all sorts of engagement, all sorts of gathering of every age to celebrate what it means to be part of the living Scotland.
Well, indeed. I mean, I've recorded a presentation for this digital gathering about the nature of games and gatherings and a few things people may not know about us, and it only is left to me to thank the Lord Lyon for graciously opening the games formally, and you can watch that presentation too. And what can we say? Was like us, eh?
Was like us indeed. And thank you all very much. Enjoy your games and enjoy the innovation, a very Scottish tradition of innovation in these digital games. Thank you, Bruce, for all your attention and for taking this interview.
And thank you, Lyon Morrow.
Elliot MacFarlane is the founder of MacFarlane's Company, a renowned living history and educational organization that works year-round at historical sites and heritage events and raises funds for the support of the stewardship and preservation work of the National Trust of Scotland, with which it collaborates to encourage an understanding and appreciation of Scotland's unique heritage on both sides of the Atlantic. The Director of Living History and Research Historian for the St. Andrew's Society of Detroit and an elected Fellow of Society of Antiquaries of Scotland, Elliot also works for the National Trust of Scotland as a Senior Field Representative in North America, a living history educator and advisor, and a Culloden Battlefield Guide. We are pleased to introduce you to Elliot MacFarlane and haggis.
Well, haggis gets a bad rap. A lot of people pick on haggis that don't understand haggis. Even Scots like to make fun of haggis. They pretend that it's an animal and you can hunt them, and they talk about eating them and throwing them. And haggis is famous because we've gone out of our way to make it famous, quite frankly. We've made it famous because we have to justify eating the stuff. The interesting things about haggis are how it evolved, and why somebody would have ever thought that you're supposed to cook up the heart, the lung, and the liver, mix it with oatmeal, and cook it in a stomach. Somebody rich and famous and important ate all the best parts of the animal, and you've got what's left. You got to do something with it. Haggis is what you do with the sheep to make it palatable. And it's a good way to prepare the dish, to store the dish, to carry the dish, and serve the dish to use the sheep's stomach. A lot of other haggises under other titles, they use the intestines and they fill them like sausage casing. We use the stomach. I guess we wanted ours bigger and more platter-like than long and skinny. Okay? But it's not that type of food dish is unique to Scots. We've worked hard to make it what it is in legend and lore. Oh, he's going to eat haggis. But if you sit down and eat a hot dog or a bratwurst, you're a step below haggis, because we're smart enough as Scots to put oats in ours. They just put more fat in theirs. Who knows what a haggis is? Well, I would think with this crowd I should see at least a few hands. And there's a couple of Irish guys in the back that are scratching their heads, but we'll get to them in a minute. Somebody tell me what a haggis is. Pudding. Pudding. Yeah, that's a good answer. Just be quiet. Who knows what a haggis is? It's what? Sheep parts and oatmeal. That's a good answer. I like that one. That's a start. Anybody else want to add? With a little spice. All right. Well, we'll correct your impression there. Okay. What else? Organ meat. We like that. Organ? You could play it? No. All right. You're all thinking of haggis as the food, like what it's made from, and we'll get to that in a minute. But what you really need to know about a haggis is this. Haggis is the national dish of Scotland unofficially. All right? So that's not official, but it's the national dish of Scotland. Every culture that you know of has a haggis. They just call it something else. Okay? They make haggis all over the world because haggis is the part of the animal that's left after rich people eat all the good stuff. If I knock down a steer, rich people eat the steaks and the roasts and all the other good parts, and what are you left with? The snout and the tail. Okay? Why do you think they make, calf's head soup and oxtail soup? Because you're left with the snout and the tail. Right? If I knock down a hog, what do rich people get? The loins and the hams and the bacon and the pork chops. What do you get? The feet and the snout. That's why they make pickled pig feet. Every culture has a haggis. It's the part of an animal made out of what's left over after rich people eat all the good stuff. And looking at this crowd, most of you don't have 2 dimes to rub together. So I'm thinking you ought to know what a haggis is and how to make it. Now, when I make a haggis, what do I have to start with? Now go back to the early part. What do you need to make a haggis? Bah! A sheep. God. What kind of crowd is this? So now I used to work with real sheep. I mean live sheep. Okay? But at the Highland Games, whenever we borrowed a sheep from a guy who had the sheep and dog show, he was never really very happy when we brought the sheep back in a different condition than it arrived. Consequently, I've been forced to bring my own sheep. This is Bob. Say hi to Bob. Bob the sheep. Now, Bob lives, where does sheep live? In a field. Stay with me here. They live outside in a field. And what do sheep do? Grass. They eat grass. So you have to imagine Bob in the field, Bob eating. Bah, bah, eat in the field. Now, some things happen to Bob between the field and the kitchen. Okay? We're going to skip over that part lightly. So here's Bob in the field. Grass, grass, grass. Here's Bob in the kitchen. Now remember, where'd all the good parts go? Rich people ate them. So what are we left with? The not so good parts. All right. What's this? Intestines. Oh, you paid attention in biology class. Okay, smart girl. If these are the intestines, then this is the large, and this is the small. Remember, they are connected. Wow, look at that. Bob's been eating daisies. Okay. In Scotland, we call this guts or entrails. We don't eat this stuff. No sane human would eat this. We feed it to the dogs. When you're cleaning up after the rich people and you're picking out the parts left for the haggis, you take the entrails, the guts, you throw them to your hounds. So this is dog food. Okay? We'll just put this over here. Now, to make a haggis, you have to think about what a haggis really is in forms of the kitchen aspect of a haggis. A haggis is essentially a meatloaf. It's ground up, chopped up meat, mixed with some filler, and you cook it in a thing, and then you get it out and you eat it, right? To make the meatloaf, besides the food ingredients, stay with me here, you Irish guys in the back. What do you need to make the meatloaf in? A pan. Do we have a meatloaf pan 300 years ago? No. Bob will provide. You go to Bob and you get Bob's stomach. Okay, those of you that really have a clue, just be quiet. It's easier to tell the story. Bob's stomach. Now, when you get the stomach out of Bob, make sure you leave plenty of room on both ends. You want to rinse this out, okay? You want to rinse it well in cold salted water. Don't poke any holes in the stomach because you don't want the meatloaf pan to leak, right? Keep it damp, set it aside. Remember, this is your meatloaf pan. Now, a haggis has 3 central things that come out of Bob. We call them the pluck. And they are this. The lungs. That's one of the 3. Now, you can parboil this, or you can chop it up raw and then cook it. There's several ways to do it. Most people kind of boil up the pluck first, but you don't have to. Anyway, you get the lungs out. Eventually, they're going to be chopped up fine, and you're going to put them aside in a big bowl. Now, then you got to have the livers. Right? That's part number 2 of the pluck. Right? And you're going to either parboil it or chop it up and then cook it. Either way, you're going to make a haggis out of it, chop it up fine. Mix it with the... Okay, stay with me here. Right? And the third thing that goes in the pluck, comes out of Bob, is... Now, we try to make this easy to identify. The English have a lot of trouble with this. They don't recognize it because they don't have one. The heart. So the pluck is made up of the heart, and what do you do with these? Chop them up fine and put them in a bowl. Now you can boil them first or boil them second. Now sometimes, like people show up at your house you don't expect, and what do you do if you're making soup? You add more water, right? Sometimes you want to stretch the haggis, you can throw in the kidneys. I don't recommend this. I don't like kidneys. I don't want them in my haggis, but occasionally. We used to have a guy who'd been a Glasgow butcher. And he said that until he retired in about 1980, he used to make up to 200 haggis a week in his butcher shop. And about 1 out of 20, some woman wanted the kidneys in there, so he'd throw them in. But I don't recommend it unless your relatives are coming and you don't want them to come back. Because I don't like to eat kidneys. Now, there's very little else in a haggis. The meat consists of the pluck, heart, lung, and liver. You have to have some suet. Suet's a fancy French word for fat, okay? Just a little aside here, don't use mutton tallow, use beef suet, okay? And that's the kind of the binder that's going to hold the meat together and make this a rich dish to eat. You also have to have filler. We use oatmeal. I don't quite know how that got in Bob, but okay. We use oatmeal, and you want whole rolled oats, not that garbage that you make in a microwave. I want all the oats with all the parts. So now you need a couple of more things. Somebody said spice earlier. A little salt and pepper is acceptable, but you also need, oh, good. Right, 3 of you. Onion, yeah. The rest of them, I don't know. Okay, here's the math part of the test here. If 1 onion is good, 2. This is 2. 1, 2. Okay, 2 onions. Good, yes. Chopped up fine. Mixed with the, and the, that's a liver. And the, and this one, right, except for the English, they're clueless. And a little bit of suet. The pluck, heart, lung, and liver. Oatmeal, onion, salt and pepper, and suet. That's it. If that's not in the haggis, it's not a haggis. If you put anything else in it, it's not a haggis. You can't jolly well make vegetarian haggis. Okay? You can't make beef haggis. You can't take lamb chops and grind them up and put that in there and call it haggis. That's a lamb meatloaf. Haggis is a very specific dish. You make it about one way. If it's not in there, it's not haggis. All right? Now, what do we got to make it in? The meatloaf pan, Bob's stomach. You got a big sheep, you got a big meatloaf pan, you get a big haggis. You got a small sheep, you got a small stomach, you got a small pan, you make a small haggis. All the ingredients, remember, have been chopped up very fine and mixed together in a big bowl. Now you'd be stuffing all that into here. Maybe you parboiled the pluck first, maybe you didn't. Doesn't really matter. All right, the pluck. And remember, this is all mixed up, right? The oatmeal, the suet. We'll throw the kidneys in. It's kind of a big crowd. All right, a couple of onions, salt and pepper. There it is. Tie the end shut. Cook it. Boil it. Boil it till it's done. It's done when the meat's cooked, if it's not already. When the onions are cooked and when the oatmeal is cooked and it swells up, it'll stretch the stomach. All right? It'll look like this when you bring it out. But more importantly, it'll look like this when you bring it out. And that's a haggis. No, we're not done yet. Stop. Thank you. I want to set that right there. Now, at breakfast, when you go to eat breakfast at a good Scottish bed and breakfast, and you will stay in bed and breakfast, by the way, never stay in tourist hotels. It looks like this on the plate. There's the haggis. See? It kind of comes out halfway between a meatloaf and corned beef hash. All right? There's haggis, sausages, black pudding, grilled tomato, grilled mushroom, fried egg, fried bacon, fried bread. No cholesterol. This is a good breakfast. You have this after you eat cereal, oatmeal, fruit, coffee, tea, toast, and yogurt. Okay? Now, the black pudding. You know, we used to do a black pudding demonstration, but I had to stop. It's really gross. Okay? The haggis is, what, a few, heart, lung, liver. There's nothing to that. But black pudding, rotting blood and oatmeal? Nah. Okay. No black pudding demo. Now, what did I tell you when we started? Every country has a haggis. They just call it something else because it's a national dish made out of the parts of the animal after rich people eat the good stuff. In Germany, they make haggis. They call it bratwurst. In Poland, they make haggis. They call it kielbasa. In Mexico, they make a haggis. They call it a burrito. In Louisiana, they make haggis. They call it boudin. Right? In China, they make haggis. They call it an egg roll. Everybody has haggis. The United States of America has a haggis. You call yours hot dogs. But remember this part? What do we call this in Scotland? The guts, the entrails. When they make bratwurst, knotwurst, kielbasa, chorizo, andouille, hot dogs, and all that other stuff, they use this part. They stuff the meat in here, they twist this off, they cook that up, and people sit around on the 4th of July celebrating American independence, eating Scottish dog food. Don't call us barbarians, but do call me to dinner. Thank you.
In the event you are unable to watch with us through to the end, this video will be made available at a later date on our Clan MacFarlane Worldwide YouTube channel for you to view at your convenience. Our next guests, Highland Rain, are a Scots-American folk rock band from Indianapolis, Indiana. They play traditionals, originals, and Celtic classics with bagpipes, guitars, percussion, vocals, and Scots-Irish fiddles. They've performed together as a band for 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Highland Rain.
Raise your eyes so fairly, wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley. Look at me, my wee lass, raise your eyes so fairly, wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley. The chief has come to gather men, the pipes are calling war. The prince has landed in the glen, his name to restore. The Highland men, we follow him from Preston Pans to Derby. With white cockades and bannerfly, take away old King Geordie. Look at me, my wee lass, raise your eyes so fairly, wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley. Look at me, my wee lass, raise your eyes so fairly, wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley. So think of me till I return with bonnets in the heather. I'm your gallant Highlandman, my heart is yours forever. If a musket ball or red coat blade takes my life so early, last thing that I will see is your smile, my Bonnie Haley. Look at me, my wee lass, raise your eyes so fairly, wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley. Look at me, my wee lass, raise your eyes so fairly, wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley. The chief has come to gather men, the pipes are calling war. The prince has landed in the glen, his name to restore. The Highland men, we follow him from Preston past the Derby. Black cockades and bannerfly take away old King Geordie. So look at me, my wee lass, raise your eyes so fairly. Wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley. Look at me, my wee lass, raise your eyes so fairly. Wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley. So look at me, my wee lass, raise your eyes so fairly. Wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley. Look at me, my wee lass, raise your eyes so fairly. Wipe away all your tears, my lovely Bonnie Haley.
To fulfill our society's mission of connecting you with your heritage, CMW has been engaged in archaeological partnerships and projects around MacFarlane territory in Scotland. Our intent is to further the collective understanding of our ancestry and the land upon which our ancestors lived. It's important that this work endure and is preserved for those that come after us. We want to discover and record what we can while we can. Along the way, we've created like-minded partnerships and friendships with numerous volunteers, landowners, professional archaeologists, rangers, and other experts who help execute each project. As a society, we're indebted to their efforts and talents, as we would not have been able to complete all the necessary tasks, such as permits, landowner permission, labor, let alone the expertise needed to guide such a project. Interest has been positive, leading to multiple publications reporting on the efforts both at the local and national level. All reports are professionally prepared and include a detailed analysis, any conclusions along with drawings, scans, and test results. Care is taken to fully document each site in accordance with government regulations and professional excellence. A summary and key findings are on our website, submitted to the Scottish Government, and subsequently published and archived on Canmore, the national record for the historic environment, at canmore.org.uk, making the results available for everyone. Should you care to donate to help support our projects, please click on the PayPal donate button on our website. If this makes you curious about what projects the clan or society to which you are connected is involved, please search them out. They could use your support as well.
From observer to participant, my friend Gretchen Sell-Finlay joins us now to share her story of moving from the sidelines of the athletic field at the Escalon Scottish Games to the middle of the action on the field with the athletes. With her tale of a rookie athlete, here is Gretchen Sell-Finlay.
Hi, I'm Gretchen Sell-Finlay. I am part of the Dixon Scottish Cultural Association. I have been a member there since about 2011, and I've helped put on the last few games there, our city games in Dixon, California. I have been attending the Scottish Games since the late 90s with my girlfriends, where we would go 3 or 4, sometimes 5 games a year all over the state of California. I really enjoyed watching the drum major competition and the heavy athletics. Not only was it just kind of amazing to watch somebody pick up a caber, but you know, the guys were wearing kilts and they weren't bad to look at. I also really enjoy watching the Wicked Tinkers. So anytime I get a chance to see them, I always try to make it to at least one of their shows every day, hopefully. And you know, I love getting to sing with them and talk with them. They're such a neat group of guys. So I started after I introduced my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, Delane. I introduced him to the Scottish Games probably about 2007, and he started going with me. He absolutely loved the atmosphere. Bought a kilt. I can't get him to take it off. He wears kilts more than he wears pants. If he was wearing pants, nobody recognizes him. But anyway, he found his clan tent that first year, and he belongs to Clan Farquharson, and we started hanging out with them. So we would go to the games, we'd bring our chairs, we'd sit with them, we'd hang out with them, and it was like our family away from family. Everybody was so friendly, and the camaraderie was just excellent. So shortly after we got married, he and I started convening for Clan Farquharson, and we did that for several years. And then we took a break and we started helping out with our Dixon Club tent at the games. And that again, it was a little different because we were promoting our Scottish Games at the other events than just kind of sitting around and hanging out with the clan members. But we still had a great time with that. In fact, in October, we went to the Escalon Games in Escalon, California, and it was their inaugural games this last year in 2019. And it was a small venue, but it was really nice. They had all of the clan tents arranged so that they were on the outskirts of the field. We got to watch the athletics going on throughout the entire day. If any of you guys have been to a games and are tent conveners, you would know that that's not always the way that things are set up. It's like clan tents are over here, this pep and drums over here, athletics are over here, and you don't always get to see everything. But the way that they had this one set up, it was really neat. With the setup, we were able to watch the athletics all day, and I really enjoyed watching the women's masters group. In that group, there was a gal who had never competed before, so I found myself rooting for her and cheering for her throughout the day. And I was thinking, wow, that's really impressive that she's out on the field. This is her first time, and she seems like she's having a lot of fun, and it doesn't look like it's that hard for her first time, right? So I kind of was interested in thinking, maybe I'll sign up, which I eventually did. I'll tell you more about that later. So for the Scottish Heavy Athletics, there's 9 events that comprise the total, what they call heavy athletics. Those events are the stones throw, which there's actually 2 different stones that you throw. There's the Braemar stone and the open stone. The Braemar, the stones for the men are anywhere from they're 20 and 26 pounds. And the women, they're about 9 to 18 pounds, depending on the games that you're throwing at. Back in the day, the Highlanders would use this as a way to see who was the strongest in the village. They would grab a river rock from the river, and they would all take turns throwing that rock to see who could throw the farthest, therefore winning the title as the strongest man in the village or something like that. Another event that they have is the weight for distance. And the weight for distance is broken into 2 events, and they are the light and the heavy. So for men, they throw a 28-pound and a 56-pound weight. And for women, it's a 14 and 20 or 28-pound weight, depending on which class you're throwing in. So again, the men hanging around the village, nothing else to do at the time, they figure, let's have a competition and see who's the strongest guy in the village, right? So it's rumored that this event came from the where they would use agricultural weights and the weighing instruments and throw them to see how far they could throw them, therefore claiming the title as the strongest person in the village. The hammer toss it's a 4-foot pole that you have to throw, and there's a ball on the end, and you kind of swing it around and throw it over your shoulder. For the men, this is a 22 and a 16-pound weight. And hi, this is Dirk. Say hi, Dirk. Say hi. You're silly. Go. All right. Hammer toss. So for the hammer toss, there's a light hammer and a heavy hammer that we throw. It's a 4-pound pole and with a weight on the end of it. And you pick it up and you kind of swing it up over your head and you throw it over your shoulder. For the men, they throw a 22 and a 16-pound weight on their hammer. And the women, they throw a 16 and a 12-pound weight for their hammers. This made its debut in the 1900 Olympics in Paris, where it became part of our modern day track and field competition. Legend says that the first hammer toss occurred around 2000 BC when a Celtic warrior picked up a chariot wheel by its axle, ran it around his head, and threw it over his shoulder. The first, in the 16th century, the axle and wheel got replaced by a blacksmith's hammer, and it was rumored that this was one of King Henry VIII's favorite competitions, and he would often toss the hammer as well. There's a caber toss. The caber is a long pole where you have to pick it up by yourself, and then you throw it so that you're throwing it end over end, and the perfect score is it lands directly in front of you at what we would consider 12 o'clock. This score, if you don't hit directly in front of you, they range it like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or if you don't manage to turn the caber on your toss, they'll give you what they call a degree score. The caber itself is anywhere from 12 to 20 feet tall, and it weighs anywhere from 30 to 150 pounds. Back in the day, it was first recorded in competition in 1574. Before that, it was used in wartime tactics. The soldiers would pick up a tree and they would leave the branches on it. They would throw it up against the castle wall and use it as a ladder to get to the top of the castle wall. Or sometimes they would throw the caber across the river stream so that they could cross an icy stream or a moat safely. This event started becoming popular in America after World War I, when the American soldiers witnessed the Scottish soldiers on the field throwing a caber over the German trenches to safely cross over the German trench, because they were often booby-trapped. Then later, after they started witnessing that, during their social time back in camp, they started throwing the caber as part of their just kind of socializing. And then the soldiers brought it back to America, and that's how we started competing in the caber. Let's see, the next event is weight over the bar. And weight over the bar is you stand and you're holding a weight, you swing it up and over the bar, and it comes down behind you, hopefully not hitting you in the head. So the weight over the bar, you have a couple of different weights that might be thrown. So the men, they throw either a 42 or a 56-pound weight, and the women throw either a 20 or a 28-pound weight, depending on what class, again, you're in. This also had some of its roots during the ancient wartime. The Scottish soldiers would use it. They would grab a rock or some sort of large, heavy instrument object. They throw it up over their head. at the castle wall, standing with their backs up to the castle wall. They'd throw it up over their head to knock out the archers that were on the wall or any enemy that was up on top of the wall before they would climb it. It also was believed that they used that as practice for grapple hooks, that they would throw the grapple hooks up and then use it to climb. That was one of the thoughts on it. The last event that they have at the games is called the sheaf toss. That's where you stick a pitchfork into it's like a little bag of stuffed hay. For men, it's usually 16 to 20 pounds, and for women, it's about 12 to 15 pounds, again, depending on what class you're in. But this roots from the guys being out in the field, grabbing a bale of hay with their pitchfork and throwing the bale up on top of the trailer. They would throw it on, and they keep trying to continuing stacking it as they throw it up, eventually going higher and higher. Also was rumored that it might have come from when they would throw stuff into the window of the barn, the second story of the barn, to get it up there. This is more recent in the games. I haven't seen, up till early 2000, I hadn't really seen this event except for maybe the last 4 or 5 years on the West Coast. So it's kind of a neat one to do. And again, the object is to throw it higher and higher and higher up over a bar. So those are the events. When I decided to join the athlete and go on the field, it was weird. Like I said, we were at the Escalon Games. We were sitting there watching them. And I heard the call that said, there's anybody out there that would like to compete. We have, our open class still has spots available. And it doesn't matter if you've competed or not, we'll help you out. I thought, always wanted to do this. This kind of sounds like fun. That gal was out there for her first time today. Maybe I could do this. So I looked at my husband and I said, I think I'm going to do something a little crazy. And he says, what are you going to do? I said, I think I'm going to sign up for the athletics and compete tomorrow. He was like, oh, yes, you should totally do it. Yes, do it. I'm like, okay, well, crap. He didn't try to talk me out of it. I was kind of hoping he would. So I thought, okay, let me call my friend who's the voice of reason, and let's see what she has to say. So I called my friend Meredith, who is part of Clan Macintosh, and I'm like, hey, Meredith, I think I'm going to do something crazy. And she's like, what? And she says, I said, I'm going to sign up to compete in the athletics tomorrow. There was kind of this pause, and I kind of felt this little wave of relief, like, okay, she's going to talk me out of it. And she didn't. She's like, how many events are there? And is it all day? Is it part of the day? And she's like, and I was kind of telling her, yeah, there's 9 events. It's all day long. I have to do all of them. She's like, yes, you should totally do this. She goes, sorry, I was trying to just figure out whether I could compete with you or not. And unfortunately, because she had prior commitments for the day, she wasn't able to commit a whole day to competing. So we didn't get to compete together. But I went and I signed up, and I was still kind of nervous about it. And I ran into my friend Jack Henderson, who is also part of the Dixon Scottish Cultural Association. And he's one of the judges for the athletes on the field. And I said, hey, Jack, I just signed up to compete tomorrow. He was so excited. He's like, oh my gosh, you're going to love it. He goes, you're going to throw once and you're going to be hooked. You're going to want to keep doing this. And I'm like, yeah, let's wait and see how sore I am the next day and see if I really want to do this again. But he gave me some quick instruction on some of the different implements that I'd be manipulating and holding on to, and tried to, kind of gave me a little bit of advice on how to throw without kind of hurting myself. And also kind of gave me an advice on what kind of snacks to bring and what kind of beverages to bring to kind of keep me hydrated and replenished throughout the day, which was very helpful. So the next day comes, I'm out there on the field getting my instruction, and our first event is the Braemar Stone. And I have to say, the ladies that I competed with were amazing. Every single one of them was right there telling you, oh, try it this way, or do it this way. And our judge was giving us instruction throughout the day. I had signed up, and I found out one of the gals that I had met the day before, she had signed up too. She had never thrown before either. So there was actually two of us in the open class. She was in the lightweight and I was in the heavyweight class. And we were both competing for the very first time that day. And there was another gal that was fairly new at competing as well. So all of the seasoned athletes were very welcoming, very open, helping you to learn each step of the way. There was no, I'm competing and I need to beat you kind of attitude at all. They were all like, don't worry about it. If you mess up, you mess up. Your next throw is your next throw. You're only competing against yourself. Each time you get up there, you just try to throw a little bit further than than what you threw the last time. And even our judge, Kim, she was amazing, giving us instructions. And her thing when we first started was, she goes, I'm going to teach you how to throw so that you don't hurt yourself today. If you find that you enjoy this and you want to continue, I'll teach you how to throw to win. So that was encouraging in and of itself. Throughout the day, I had such a huge cheering section, which was so much fun. Because I've been involved with the games for so long, I've made so many different friends. So as I'm going around the field, the clan tent conveners are all, yeah, Gretchen, woo! And having, that made me want to throw a little bit harder, a little bit further, kind of a thing. And even the Queen's Court, I'm friends with the gal who is Mary Queen of Scots. So at times when she wasn't busy, she would have the Queen's Court come up, walk over to the field and cheer for me as I was competing or getting ready to throw. And so it was really awesome. Being a spectator, you hear the announcer say, come on guys, get a little loud, let them hear you, it'll help them throw. And you're thinking, yeah, right. But no, it really does actually help. The more people that are cheering, the better you want to do. And it just makes it, that much more obtainable. So I think after competing, there's a lot of, people will say, I like this event better than this event. I've only competed once. I really don't know what my favorite event is. I think it might be the hammer toss. I think I did really well. I think that was probably the one that I did the best at throughout the day, was the hammer toss. Least favorite, I would probably have to say for now, weight over the bar, but that's because it scares me. Every time I throw, I run forward because I think that I'm going to hit myself in the head. And luckily I didn't. My goal stepping out onto the field that day was to throw further than I am tall, which really isn't that far because I'm not that tall, and to not conk myself in the head with the caber or the weight coming down from the weight over the bar. I'm happy to say that I met my goal and actually exceeded it. So I'm very happy about that. I would encourage anybody to get out there. If you have ever thought about trying the games, the athletes themselves are so open and so friendly. If you don't have the proper equipment, which I didn't, they're willing to let you borrow it. Basically, the rule is if it's on the field, anybody can use it. So they're sharing their tacky glue, they're sharing their pitchforks. They taped my fingers so I wouldn't get blisters. I mean, they're all very friendly and willing to help. One thing that I did when I got back was I joined a group called the Iron Thistle Highlanders, which is a group of guys and some girls out of Vacaville, California. They get together once a week and just practice throwing. They're doing the stone throw, the weight for distance, and the hammer for distance. They don't have standards, so we can't do weight over bar, or and we don't have a caper to practice. But every now and then somebody will bring a mini caper and we'll practice picking that up at least. So that has been really helpful. The guys are absolutely wonderful. I had one gentleman, Micah, he pulled us, there was two of us new that hadn't really been throwing before. He pulled us aside, gave us some instructions on how to stand and, okay, change this stance, change this. This is how you're doing this. Okay, that was good. Now don't forget to look up. That's my biggest problem, is looking up. I'm always looking down at my feet because I'm a klutz. So the guys, when you're out there practicing, they're if you're listening to one person or one person's instructing you, they respect that. They don't want to interrupt you and try to tell you how to do something different, because what they do differently may not be what you're told to do, and it can really mess you up. So they're very respectful unless you ask them specifically, hey, what could I have done better? Which they're willing to share, but they won't force their way of doing it on you, because they don't want to mess up what you're doing successfully at that point. One of the things that they say is you fix one thing, you break two. So that's kind of how it goes. But if I can do this at being almost 50, overweight, out of shape, and have the time of my life, you can too. And I hope to see you out on the field someday, and we'll share some scotch. So thank you so much for your time, and hope to see you at the next games.
Joining us now from Canada is one of CMW's own board members, Andrea MacFarlane-Grieve.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrea MacFarlane-Grieve, and I'm one of the directors of Clan MacFarlane Worldwide. Clan MacFarlane Worldwide is indeed an international organization, and we have members all across the world, including my home country of Canada. My MacFarlane family settled in Miramichi, New Brunswick, Canada, approximately 1785. Through Clan MacFarlane Worldwide, I have been able to reconnect with many of my long-lost relatives in the province of New Brunswick and in the state of Maine. But most important, I've made many new friends. So if you are interested in exploring your Scottish heritage, or you simply want to get to know other people with Scottish roots, I encourage you to look for a club related to your surname and to join it. I extend this invitation to all of our friends around the world in places such as the United States, Canada, Europe, England, Australia, and of course, Scotland. And finally, for those of you who are MacFarlane, come join Clan MacFarlane Worldwide. Let us rally together to explore the past and shape the future of the MacFarlane journey. Loch Sloy.
The owner of Thistle Dubh Enterprises, Janet Robertson, creates unforgettable memories with her travel and concierge company. Born and raised in Scotland, living now in the USA, she will work with your company or family to create an unforgettable adventure. From safaris to spa breaks, cultural immersion to ancestral journeys, she uses her imagination and huge bank of personal and professional resources to design an experience for you that will blow your mind. And I'm speaking from personal experience. Please keep your hands inside the vehicle, buckle up, and enjoy your ride with Janet Robertson.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing great. I hope you're enjoying the CMW Digital Gathering 2020, and I'm delighted to spend this time with you. I know I can get you excited about taking a trip to Scotland sometime soon. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Janet Robertson from the company Thistle Enterprises, located in Centennial, Colorado. We are a travel and concierge company with a strong emphasis of taking individuals, families and groups to Scotland. We have been doing this over 15 years. I'm originally from a small town called Broxburn in the West Lothian area of Scotland, just about 15 miles west of Edinburgh. All of the adventures we put together for clients are carefully crafted to take in everything our guests are looking to experience and enjoy. And of course, we always suggest a few extras as we believe in showcasing everything Scotland has to offer, from its food, ancestry, music, to sports and events. We encourage you to share all of your dreams for your trip, and we will design it for you. I strongly believe everyone needs to visit Scotland at least once in their lifetime, or as many times as possible that you could fit in would be my recommendation. And of course, I'd be delighted to take you every single time. So why visit Scotland? We know that over 4 million people in the USA claim Scottish ancestry, whether they are first generation, second generation, part Scot, and so on. Highland games that are performed worldwide is clearly a way to bring those like-minded people who feel the deep connection together. I can think of no other way to enhance that kind of experience other than actually taking the journey to Scotland to experience everything firsthand. Our people are warm, friendly, and welcoming, and exploring the country is easy. Scotland has excellent transportation, from trains to ferries and internal flights, and of course driving or having a driver guide take you around are wonderful options too. And to ensure we all drive on the correct side of the road, there is a bumper sticker in Scotland that you might see on many cars, and it goes like this: left alive, dead right. Sorry, really crummy joke, I'll try not to do too many of those. All right. For those belonging to a clan organisation, then seeing your ancestral home firsthand has to be number one on your bucket list. The deep knowledge of the experienced guides we work with will help bring your heritage to life, allowing you to walk in the steps of your forebearers. And of course, we can include attending your clans, your local clans in Scotland's local gatherings, games, celebrations, obviously all dependent on timings if this fits in with the time frame that you're looking to visit Scotland. Clan MacFarlane Worldwide Tour is actually scheduled for June 29 through July 6 of 2021. At the moment, the tour is sold out, but for those interested, please reach out to me and I'll add you to the waiting list. You never know. The 2021 tour will include a visit to the Loch Sloy Dam and a visit right up to the dam bridge, where your ancestors often used the moon, but not for romance or anything along those lines, but to shed light on the cattle that they were looking to plunder. Our Clan Forbes tour is scheduled for August 23 through August 29 of 2021, and we do have 2 spots left on that tour, so should anyone have Clan Forbes interest or affiliation, then please reach out to me to get the details on that one too. Other reasons to visit Scotland has to be the scenery, which is true, it really is truly intoxicating. Our endless lochs are sure to impress, with some of the deepest being Loch Lomond, which has so many islands on it, and 2 of which do house MacFarlane Castle remains. Others such as Inchkeeloch is the final resting place for many Clan MacGregor members, but the name most in evidence there is actually MacFarlane. Loch Tay is a wonderful, dreamy location, boasting 20 ancient crannog remains, with one of them being actually reconstructed, also known as the Scottish Crannog Centre. There you can discover underwater archaeology. You can enjoy a cruise on these waters, bringing its magical surroundings to life as you listen to the loch's Iron Age history. And of course, probably the most famous is Loch Ness, with its monster Nessie. On the other side of Loch Ness is the amazing, iconic Urquhart Castle, once one of Scotland's largest castles, and it certainly saw some of the most dramatic chapters in Scotland's story. There are hundreds of glorious glens in Scotland for you to discover too, all with their very own unique character. I've done this many times, but visiting Glen Coe on a day where the clouds are, low, cloaking the high hills, hearing tales of the battles fought there, and seeing where the Clan MacDonald hid their cattle, they rustled from their neighbours, is sure to have a lasting impression. You obviously had much the same ideas about cattle as Clan MacDonald, but we'll leave that one alone. And while you're there in Glencoe, you can hike, obviously, and see all these different locations, but you can also do this all by Land Rover, so you don't need to do the driving, you don't need to do the walking, you can just enjoy everything from the comfort of a Land Rover. Another glen definitely worth a visit is Glen Lyon. Not so many people go there, and it's not too far from the location of Loch Tay. Should you go there, then this is where you would discover Fortingall, which is actually home to one of the oldest yew trees in Europe, believed to be 2,000 plus years old, so pretty impressive. The area was also home to Roman soldiers, so we do advise you to pop into the local hotel for a refreshment. And I'm sure you will hear stories about Pontius Pilate, who's said to have been born near this tree and played beneath its branches. Scottish folks do love to share a story, so do enjoy. If you're into hiking, you may want to try all or part of the West Highland Way. It's a 96-mile stretch, taking in a huge variety of scenery from loch shores, open moorlands, steep mountains, and of course there are lots of bed and breakfasts, different kinds of accommodations and pubs dotted along the way, so you can rest and refresh as you go. This route is something you would do over 4 or 5 days, definitely not something that you would accomplish in a day. I also want to mention our off-coast islands. They're all very unique, and at least one should be included in any of your Scottish adventures. For our whisky lovers, Islay is home to 9 distilleries, where some of those well-known waters of life are created, such as Bruichladdich, Bowmore, Ardbeg, and so on. So we know you will find a favourite. It just involves a little tasting, or maybe a lot of tasting. While you're there, be sure to pop over to the gorgeously untamed island of Durie. It's one of the wildest places in Scotland where the deer outnumber the inhabitants 27-1. So you're sure to see one of them. That is inhabitant and, of course, deer. There's also a distillery there, which was built by the Campbells in 1810 for you to enjoy as well. And one other thing that we really do recommend is do check the times of the tides. And if all is aligning well, then do take the boat trip out to the 3rd largest whirlpool in the world, which is the Corryvreckan, before you leave this island. Mull and Iona, these 2 islands should be enjoyed together, and of course taking a side boat trip to Staffa to see those hexagonal 6-sided basalt columns, the puffins, and Fingal's Cave that was immortalised by Mendelssohn in his Hebrides Overture really does make a wonderful day out. Iona is known as the cradle of Christianity in Scotland, and it is a key reason to visit it. And it's also the sacred burial ground of 48 Scottish kings. So there's something very special about taking a trip to that island. Tobermory, the main town on Mull, with its recognisably brightly painted buildings around the harbour and little boats bobbing around, it makes the perfect base to explore these wonderful islands. But if the mysteries of standing stones calls to you, then most of these West Coast islands I've been chatting about, well, will satisfy that desire. The most impressive being the Callanish stones on the Isle of Lewis. Travelling from island to island can easily be achieved by car ferries, allowing you to hopscotch around. It does take time to get from island to island, but the ferry schedule is regular, so it's no problem to do it. And then for our golfers, Scotland has a legacy that spans 6 centuries, so there's absolutely no finer place to play in the world. With over 550 courses to choose from, you can enjoy links courses, parklands, heathlands, and really everything in between. I would suggest this can also be arranged around some of the most prestigious tournaments, so that you can actually take in the thrill of watching some of the world's top golfers tee off too. Don't forget that we do want you to spend some time in our wonderful cities, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Aberdeen. So much to see and do in each of the cities. Edinburgh, of course, being the capital and home to the iconic castle, which houses the ancient honours of Scotland, and Holyrood Palace, which has served as the principal residence for kings and queens since the 16th century, are definitely, places you should visit whilst being in Edinburgh. And of course, Edinburgh is home to the Edinburgh Military Tattoo. That happens in August every year. So if you're going to be visiting at that time, I do think you should take in a performance at the tattoo. The bustling cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh are both really a paradise for shoppers. Lots of designer stuff, just so many cool things that you can pick up there. So you're guaranteed wonderful retail experiences to find all the special treasures that you might like to take home with you. And dining in these cities is also, a great experience. One recommendation would be the Chip on Ashton Lane in Glasgow's West End. It was actually founded on bringing Scotland's, don't laugh, endangered cuisine from homes, yes, what we cooked at homes, to the restaurants. The restaurant itself has really evolved, and it has 4 different options when you're there, from fine dining to pub type food. So definitely put that one on your list. Another would be the Bolt Hall of the Witchery in Edinburgh, a much loved dining experience. And again, you can be in the original dining room with its baroque surroundings, or the candlelit charms of its secret garden. All I do know is your taste buds are going to be more than satisfied. And then for our seafood lovers, whilst you may be visiting Attica, your Clan MacFarlane homelands, we do suggest a visit out to the Lochfine Oyster Company. It's just a short distance from Attica, and I know you won't be disappointed. Scotland does indeed sparkle. Come rain, come shine, it really doesn't matter. And after all, one thing to keep in mind is we didn't invent the raincoat. That's probably for a reason. For those that have already visited Scotland, I am sure that you're not surprised by that invention. The Macintosh was first sold in 1824, designed by Charles Macintosh. We do, of course, get lots of sunny and dry days in Scotland too, but we love to be prepared. So on that note, let me share a short video with you, highlighting a variety of amazing places, experiences, and of course, perfect weather. Hello again. I hope you truly enjoyed that little video clip. I hope it inspired you, seeing some of the scenes, especially the aerial shots of Scotland. It really is an amazing country and it holds so much for you. We would love to take you to Scotland. We hope to hear from you soon, and you can reach us. Best phone number, area code 925 303 4008, or email us at info@thistledubh.net. That's info@thistledubh.net. I'll put those contact details up in a minute. I hope you're enjoying the games. Stay safe, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye-bye.
Please welcome again Highland Rain.
I'm a stranger to this country, from America I came. There's nobody that kens me, all the actors know my name. I'll go out to this country, I'll wander for a while. I'll pray my body dearie, and many's the weary mile. Hey! Some say that I'm rakish, some say that I'm wild, some say that I'm guilty, the lassies to beguile. I will prove them lying folk if you come along with me, and be my least and lassie on the plains of America. Give my regards to Nancy, who lives on yonder hill, and likewise unto Betsy, she's the lass I like so well. And give my love to Maggie, she's my heart's delight. I'll roll her in my arms at Elon winter's night. Hey! The ship that's on the salt sea must sail without her sail. The wee fishies grow till they turn to muffle whale. In the middle of the ocean might grow a rowing tree. Before that I prove false to her, that's give her love to me. Give my regards to Nancy, who lives on yonder hill, and likewise unto Betsy, she's the lass I like so well. Give my love to Maggie, she's my house delight. I'll roll her in my arms at a long winter's night. Hey! Darling, in Western I will sail on a packet out of Leith, my dear, on a brisk and pleasant gale. And when that I am landed, you'll plight your troth to me. We'll dance and sing together on the plains of America. Give my regards to Nancy, who lives on yonder hill, and likewise on to Betsy, she's a lass I like so well. Give my love to Maggie, she's my house to lie. I'll blow her in my arms at long winter's night. Give my regards to Nancy, who lives on yonder hill, and likewise on to Betsy, she's a lass I like so well. Give my love to Maggie, she's my house to lie. I'll blow her in my arms at long winter's night. Hey! Stranger to this country, from America I came. American stranger. I'm a stranger to this country, from America I came. American stranger. American stranger. American stranger. American stranger.
In 2014, Peter MacFarlane and Preston MacFarlane were given permission by the head librarian at the Scottish Advocates Library to copy the old historic papers of the famous antiquarian Walter MacFarlane for their use. Muniments are legal documents, deeds, charters, and writs. Added to this MacFarlane muniment collection are letters and genealogies. Clan MacFarlane's 16th chief, Walter MacFarlane, had dedicated his life to carefully collecting and copying mostly original papers from Scotland's places of storage, including various clan families' chests and monastic records. This Walter, Laird of Arrochar, 1705 to 1767, read Latin, could converse in Gaelic, and was considered an expert in historical, topographical, and genealogical pursuits throughout his life. More importantly for our MacFarlane research, the library collection also includes many historical MacFarlane family charters, which were bequeathed to the Royal Society of Procurators in Glasgow and are preserved in an ancient iron chest in their library, which covers the years 1395 to 1778. These included only a part of the original papers once owned by the MacFarlane clan chiefs. Many others have been lost, and some may have been destroyed by Oliver Cromwell's troops when they bombarded and burned the Laird's Inveruglous Castle in 1654. In all, 5 volumes of records were copied, with over 1,200 images captured. Peter and Preston began to have the documents translated from Old Latin, Old Scots, and Gaelic to modern English, and now CMW has begun to help sponsor the project. If you would like to help, please donate to help us pay our professional translators and have their work double-checked. We will then be sharing the work with interested parties. Donations can be made by clicking on the PayPal donate button on our website.
We proudly present to you once again, Dr. Bruce Durie.
Well, hello. My name's Bruce Durie, and how wonderful that we've all got together at this digital gathering. A marvellous innovation. As we can't meet in person, we're all in lockdown due to this zombie apocalypse that's hit us. I hope you've watched the Lord Lyon formally opening your digital gathering, and perhaps you've also seen the conversation Lord Lyon and I had about his vision of the future for the dissemination of Scottish history, culture, traditions and so on, and the place that games and gatherings play in that. I've been to many in my time, especially in North America, not so much in Scotland. We don't really do games the way the dispersed Scots do in other parts of the world. This is Grandfather Mountain, where I've been quite a few times visiting, giving talks, running a tent and playing music and so on. They have the mass pipe bands. These are actually my old friends from the band of St Andrews University in Scotland County, North Carolina, and they're very good. The heavy games, of course, putting the shot, heaving the straw bale, tossing the caber, and the like. Highland dancing and other types of competitions, and there's all the clan tents again in the background. Some people choose to dress authentically and appropriately. Other people choose to dress in, shall we say, less traditional manner, and some people dress in a way that never happened in Scotland. Nobody ever painted their face blue. That was just a movie. However, the gentleman is wearing a rather interesting combination of costume below his blue face. You'll notice in his sock there's a ski and do, which is not actually a weapon. Might come back to that point. You will see a whole plethora of tartans, some of them genuinely ancient, some, and the vast majority, dating from the mid-1800s, and some, as new as last week. New tartans are being developed and designed all the time, and that's a good thing. It keeps the tradition fresh. Gatherings are a chance to meet old friends and to make some new friends. And it's great to see the younger generation coming along and getting involved in all this stuff. They are the future. And of course there's an opportunity, it's often called a march of clans or a parade of clans or a gathering, and people display their association to a particular clan or family surname, and we'll talk more about the various banners that they're holding in a wee minute. And of course in North America people typically tend to brandish weapons, something we don't do in Scotland, by the way. I think the earliest Scottish games, or the earliest I've ever found recorded, were in the time of Malcolm Canmore in the late 11th century, where he wanted to find a royal messenger who could run about the place. So he had a competition basically for men racing up Craighonnock, which is near Braemar, and the winner got to be his royal messenger and run around. Fine thing. But the oldest games, I think, are those held in series in Fife every year, which is where I come from, more or less. They've been going since 1314, ever since King Robert Bruce issued a charter allowing series to hold markets and fairs and have a games, and it was a way of him allowing people to celebrate the fact that they had helped win the Battle of Bannockburn and defeat Edward II. But in its modern incarnation, I think the Braemar gathering is the one we look to. Started in 1815, more and more events were added, including athletic competitions in 1832, and then Queen Victoria, when she was at Balmoral, went for the first time in 1838, a tradition that's continued with our monarchs. Our Queen Elizabeth would never miss the Braemar Games, except possibly this year, when she's on holiday at Balmoral, which is quite nearby. However, about the same time, the Highland Society of New York had its first, well, they called it a sportive meeting, and very soon after that, 3 years later, the Caledonian Club of San Francisco had its first Highland Games with events like dancing and so on. And the same year, this was happening in Antigonish in Nova Scotia, where there are a great many Scots. And these two fine places contend for who's got the oldest, who did it first, who's been doing it continuously and longest, and so on. But it does mean that the Highland Games tradition, in its modern incarnation, is just about as old in America as it is in Scotland. So what do we wear? Well, this gentleman here is wearing the full rig, the Phillimore, the Great Kilt, which is one long piece of fabric, 8 yards, or the full 9 yards, which is where that phrase comes from, by the way. And you basically wrap it round your waist, gather it in pleats, put a belt round it, and then throw the rest of it over your shoulder as a plaid, sometimes held in place with a plaid brooch. So a plaid is a garment, it's not a pattern. The words plaid and tartan are not interchangeable. You cannot have a plaid carpet unless you were preparing to wear it. He does have a ski and do down his sock. I've had discussions about the ski and do with people, especially in America. Why are ski and do? Well, it's ancient Scottish tradition. And anyway, we have a right to bear arms. And I would say, do you have a right to bear cutlery? Because the ski and do is not a weapon. It's a tool for skinning and eating and cutting up your food. It's a piece of kitchenware and a great place to keep it down the sock so you can skin a rabbit or cut your cheese or whatever. Modern day wear tends to involve the philibeg, the short kilt. Arguments rage on as to whether the small kilt, the philibeg, was invented by, designed by, or maybe just manufactured initially by an Englishman called Robertson in Manchester. But he certainly did it at the behest of the chief of Glengarry, who then thought it was a great idea, very convenient, and promoted it to his people, and then it became a wider phenomenon. During the day, that's typically worn with a Cluny jacket or a similar jacket. In the evening, however, the philibeg, and you'll see the different spelling there, a more kind of modernised non-Gaelic spelling, is worn with what's now known as a Prince Charlie jacket. And I have no idea why that's called a Prince Charlie jacket. It's not associated with any Prince Charlie, especially the bonny one. It didn't emerge until the early 1900s, really, and it's an obvious development of mess gear, as they call it, what officers in the army would wear at a regimental dinner. But by the 1920s, it was in this form that you see here, with a small waistcoat and being called a Prince Charlie jacket. Notice the shoes. During the day, of course, when you're out and about at muddy fields at a gathering, you wear sensible shoes or brogues, and there's a version of those in the evening which are more appropriate for dancing, gilly brogues. Gilly, of course, is a Highland servant, especially one who works outdoors. A word of caution, though, on hose. Trust me, no Scottish gentleman would ever be seen dead wearing white hose. They are an anathema. Wear Lovett hose, that's the dark green colour you see here, or another dark colour that's appropriate to your tartan, for example. And instead of a Prince Charlie jacket, some people like a slightly older thing called the Montrose doublet, here worn with a jabot, lace jabot round the neck. Very nice too. These good folks that you saw, they're wearing what's called the Balmoral bonnet, with a Durie, a little pom-pom on top, and a cap badge, which we'll talk about in a moment. An older form is the Scotch bonnet, or the tam o' shanter, blue woolen bonnet, typically blue. This gentleman is wearing a cockade, thereby indicating his adherence to the Jacobite persuasion. As it happens, not a cap badge. The cockade predates the cap badge, which I'll now explain. And the other form of headgear is known as the Lowland Glengarry, and it's actually not ancient, and it's not particularly Highland, and it's not actually Scottish. It was the headgear of the whole British Army. It became associated with the Scottish regiments later on. Here's a bigger picture of it, and of course regiments wear regimental cap badges so they can be identified, and that tradition has turned into the present day wearing of a cap badge associated with your clan or family or your surname. This regimental one here, this is quite old actually when I'm looking at it, and that is the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders. I think I'm right in saying. The soldiers that you see, I think they're a rifle regiment, possibly the Cameronians, which is not the same as the Cameron Highlanders, different. Ladies, now ladies often ask me what should I wear and how do I wear it. The traditional, I mean, wear what you like basically, but the traditional wear is called an arrowhead, and it's typically not tartan, it's some other woolen cloth worn more or less like a tent to keep the Highland weather off. Ladies do wear tartan, of course. Here is a plaid worn as a shawl. These images, by the way, they are supposed to reflect the 1800s. They were done in the 1900s by a man called McKeon, and they're rather nice. But people, you may have seen this around the place. It is said you can indicate who you are as a lady by the way you wear your shawl. Kinswomen wear it knotted on the right shoulder. The wives of chiefs and colonels of Scottish regiments, and indeed female chiefs, wear it knotted on the left shoulder. Ladies who've married out of their clan or family but want to wear their own original tartan wear it tied in a bow at the side. Country dancers wear it slung down the back, and so on. And I have to tell you, all of that is complete nonsense, invented in the 1950s. Various people will tell you that this was based on research and analysis of ancient portraits of Scottish ladies and what they wore and how they wore it and so on. Well, I've spoken to people who have portraits of great aunts and grandmothers, great grandmothers, and wives of chief and grand ladies in their own collections, and they say they're worn every which way. There was no rhyme or reason to it, except in one circumstance, the country dancers one there. It really does make sense to keep your shawl out of your way when you're dancing, or perhaps you have decorations you want to wear on the front of your dress, and you don't want the sash, I should say, not shawl, sash, to obscure these. So wear the sash any way you like, but if you're going to be hooking it at the dancing, maybe it's best to keep it out of the way. Otherwise, no, there's no rule about this. However, there are rules, in fact laws indeed, in Scotland about the display of coats of arms. A coat of arms belongs to one person at a time, or one corporation at a time, but a coat of arms can never pertain to an entire surname or a group of people. If you don't personally have a coat of arms granted by the Lord Lyon, then please do not display it. This chap you see here, you've seen him a few times now, he is actually our chief, Andrew Durie of Durie, who happily posed for these photographs, and that's his arms above him on a shield hanging outside our tent at One Games, and they are his arms. Other Duries have arms, I have arms, they're like that but different. Other Duries have versions of those arms too, but they're all individual, and his do not apply to me or any other Durie. So you cannot say these are the arms of our clan, these are the arms of our family. It is a historical and legal and heraldic nonsense. If the chief has arms, they do not belong to anyone else of that surname. There is no such thing as a clan or family coat of arms. Now, of course, family societies and surname groups, Scottish interest groups generally, may have coats of arms. If they petition the Lord Lyon for one and he finds them well deserving and worthy, he may well grant a coat of arms, and that's a fine thing. A lot of clan societies, family societies of arms, Scottish interest groups, St Andrews societies and so on. This one happens to be a Scottish Historical Society in Utah. You can tell it's Utah because there's the beehive from Salt Lake City, so that doesn't pertain to a surname at all. But remember that because a society has a coat of arms, that doesn't mean it pertains to all the members of the society or to anyone else of that surname, for example. It's the same way as Coca-Cola has a logo, but it doesn't belong to everybody who works for Coca-Cola or drinks Coca-Cola. It's the company. However, we have found a way around that, because the Scots are nothing if not inventive. And it is typical for us to wear the chief's crest. That's the bit above the helmet. The shield is the arms. It's not called a crest. There's such thing as a family crest, and that's not a crest. The crest is the bit that goes above the helm. In this case, it's the mountain cat, and the motto here is, touch not the cat, but a glove. Don't touch the cat without a glove, watch yourself. And this is the motto and the crest of Clan Hatton and a couple of the other clans that are part of that big confederation. And anyone can wear that in a strap and buckle to indicate their association with that surname or that chief or that clan or family. However, there are some rules about this too. If you are a chief, you wear not a strap and buckle, but an undifferentiated circlet and 3 feathers. 3 feathers means a chief. And please, unless you've been recognised as a chief of name and arms by the Lord Lyon and accepted by the Standing Council of Scottish Chiefs, do not wear 3 feathers. It is not appropriate. Likewise, if you have your own coat of arms, if you are an armiger, you wear your crest, not the chief's crest, within an undifferentiated circlet, again, not a strap and buckle, and 1 feather. Please do not wear a feather in your cap if you don't have your own coat of arms. It gives a misleading impression. What do you wear if you don't have arms, if you're not an armiger? Well, the strap and buckle, with the chief's crest, the chief's motto, or slogan, or slughorn inside that, and that's perfectly fine. Kinsmen, kinswomen wear that as kilt pins, plaid brooches, cap badges, and it's a fine thing. That's the armiger with a single feather, the chief with 3 feathers, and please don't ask me what 2 feathers means. It's incredibly complicated, and the usage is changing these days. Or, rather than anything else, you could wear the plant badge rather than a cap badge. The plant badge is a much older, much more ancient way of identifying a surname group, a clan or a family. This happens to be the son of our chief, so he'll be the next chief, and he's wearing the Durie plant badge, which is a particular kind of laurel, as it happens. And that's how you would be identified, not by wearing a cap badge, but by wearing a cockade perhaps, or a plant badge. The thing about flags is also complicated. I'll just give you a couple of examples. You see the lion rampant everywhere, and it shouldn't be everywhere. The lion rampant is not the flag of Scotland. It's the Queen's flag in Scotland, and it properly should only be flown when the Queen or a member of the royal family is there, or one of the great officers of state of Scotland, like the First Minister or the Lord Lyon, or someone of equivalent rank. Otherwise, it's just not the right thing to do. We have a flag. We have the saltire, blue background, white saltire cross, and that is the flag of Scotland, in the way that the stars and stripes are the flag of America, whereas the seal of the president belongs to the president. They are not the same thing. So fly the saltire proudly. Please don't fly the lion rampant. And sometimes you see long swallow-tailed pennons flown above a clan tent, for example, or carried by someone. That's fine if that pennon has actually been granted by the Lord Lyon. Some forms of flags anyone can use, I'll show you in a moment, but the pennon is a heraldic grant and shouldn't be flown or carried or displayed by anyone other than the person to whom it pertains and who's been granted it. But if you have one, proudly put it above your tent and let it fly and then carry it around at the games. Why not? This, however, is absolutely appropriate. It's called a gonfanon, and it's a banner, either rectangular or sometimes shield-shaped, on a horizontal bar carried on a long pole, and it typically has the crest of the chief on it. That happens to be Sir Malcolm MacGregor, Chief of Clan Gregor, and these people have chosen to put the MacGregor tartan behind it and the surname embroidered on, and they're all wearing the right kilt and so on, and that's a fine thing. And this is exactly what you see at the what do they call it, March of Clans, Parade of Clans, Gathering of Clans at Highland Games. All these people showing their own surnames, their chief's crest, and the appropriate tartan and so on, and isn't that lovely? Notice, though, a recent tendency for people to carry flags which are just their tartan. That's something that never happened in Scotland, and probably wouldn't happen today, because it's only quite recently that there's been this one-to-one association of a tartan with a surname. It was never like that in the past. You will see portraits of great Highland chiefs, painted by some fabulous painter, and they're wearing 2 or 3 tartans. You will see paintings of people in the Highlands wearing a couple of tartans. Tartans were particular districts, typically, rather than individual surnames. And the linking of the two was something that started really as a marketing exercise in the Victorian period. So don't be misled by that. You would not differentiate fighting groups, for example, by them carrying a tartan banner, because it wouldn't mean anything to anyone watching. But it happens nowadays. I don't think anybody's confused by it. Something that does confuse, though, is the business of septs. You will see outside clan and family tents and elsewhere lists of septs. If you have the surname, you can join our clan or family and so on. And they are another example of late Victorian nonsense. When the world went Scotland crazy, everybody wanted to go to Scotland and they all wanted to wear a tartan, and they were disappointed to find that if they didn't have a name like Macpherson or MacGregor or Lauder or Leslie or something, there was no tartan. Fortunately, there was a man called Frank Adam, living in Malaya actually at the time, who wrote a very influential book, and he included in it lists of septs, names associated with the great clan and family names, and they are utterly made up. No historical authority for it whatsoever. And if you look at different sept lists, you will see they're all different from each other, and you will see clans and families claiming some kind of ownership over a surname that comes from a completely different part of Scotland, and they have no historical link. And you will find different clans, for example, all claiming that such and such is a sept of theirs. Morrison is a clan in its own right, and yet there are at least 3 other clans that claim Morrison is a sept of theirs. They are nonsense. Now, I know that in marketing terms they're a fabulous thing for getting people into your tent so you can sign them up or sell them something or whatever, and they sprung up because the tartan companies thought they were a marvellous marketing thing too, but they are not authentic and should be put away, in my view. Along with this other thing, you will see various groups of people claiming we are an armigerous clan, we are an armigerous family. And what that's supposed to indicate is that we don't have a chief at the moment, but we once did, and here is his or her coat of arms. Well, I'm afraid the term armigerous clan, armigerous family, didn't even exist until about 1995. It's only 25 years old, and it was dreamed up for a publishing purpose. It doesn't have any historical validity whatsoever. You can't have an armigerous clan because a coat of arms cannot pertain to a whole group of people, one surname. one coat of arms, one person or body corporate at one time. Wee bit contentious there, but I'm happy to argue my corner, as I have done very happily in many a clan tent around various gatherings in my time. I won't dribble on because I've maybe given you quite a lot for food for thought and reasons for discussion and things you might want to talk about amongst yourselves. If you're interested in getting more on this, you might want to get my book, Scottish American Ancestry. It doesn't just pertain to Americans, by the way, but they are the biggest market, let's face it. It's all about being Scottish overseas and what you should know and what you might do about it. And if you really want to get into Scottish genealogy, I also have a book by that name. It's quite thick and heavy, by the way, so if you don't read it, you can always use it to keep a door open or hold up a table or stun a burglar or something. You can see them all on my website, and you can buy them on Amazon and various other places. Enjoy. Enough advertising. I'd like to thank you for your attention in this. I'll be happy to hear from anyone. There is my email address. Do have a look at the website. And a special thank you to Scott Clans, my friends at Scott Clans in Leith here in Edinburgh, where I'm speaking from. They do marvellous Scottish things, including handmade kilts, entirely made by one person, one kilt. Really skilled. And finally, I'm going to leave you with one of my favourite pieces of music. This is from Old Friends, Two a Day. I know it looks like it says Tuatha Dea, but it's Gaelic, or it's actually Irish Gaelic, and it means the people of the god, pronounced Two a Day, and they are this wonderful Scottish-inspired, Gaelic-inspired band from Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And I'll leave you with a song of theirs called Alan Doohan, Brown-Haired Alan. Do enjoy.
Though things are different this year, what is the same among our clans and societies is that we can stand together as one family to celebrate our shared love of our Scottish heritage and traditions. We hope that your spirit had a chance to be renewed. Thank you to our guest presenters, and thank you for joining us.